Welcome to the second trade edition of the Brisbane Lions Fancast. We're here to update you on all things to do with player movements. We'll also be joined by Jonathan Freeman, the newest Lions recruit, a bit later in the show. For now, though, Mike, there's a fair bit of news going around and speculation and innuendo that probably needs a bit of discussion.
Can't believe we're only a couple of days into the trade period.
I'm exhausted already.
I know, hasn't it finished yet? We say there is a lot of speculation, obviously, and we've got from the Lions' perspective, there's obviously the 5 guys that have expressed their interest to leave. It seems like, I don't know if it's a formality, but they're certainly working through the process with each of those 5 players, and they're all at different stages. So I think maybe you resign to losing those 5. It seems that way, doesn't it?
I think the only way we'll keep one now is if a trade can't be struck and they'd prefer to stay with us for another year rather than enter the draft. I think that's legitimately the only way it's going to go down. And I can't see, with the damage that's already been done with probably their connections with other players. I've seen some players tweeting about homesickness and making jokes on that expense, and I just can't see them coming back into the group now and being like, hey guys, I'm staying. I think it's just almost like the bridges have been a bit too much burnt now.
It's an interesting card that Brisbane can play, isn't it, too, with the threat of putting those players back into the pre-season draft, because with a lot of the clubs that are involved here, and we're talking Adelaide and Port Adelaide when it comes to Jared Pollock, we're talking a Hawthorn with Billy Longer, possibly a Carlton with Sam Docherty. All these clubs are lower than Brisbane in the pre-season draft order, so Brisbane have got that card to play if they want to, which is another interesting dimension. I'm not saying that the Lions would redraft those guys if they missed out altogether and it came to pre-season draft, but it's just another interesting little scenario, isn't it, if a deal can't get struck in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, a few of the individual scenarios, Billy Longer looks like he's nominated Hawthorn, I think.
Just quickly, Dom, I find it interesting that players are homesick and then are quite prepared to nominate one club in Victoria. So, to call me a bit cynical, but there's 10 clubs in Victoria, and to nominate one seems a little bit rich for me, but good luck to the players, and we may be interviewing them next year, so I don't want to burn that bridge just yet. But it seems a little bit rich. But good luck to them, and if the Lions can strike a deal, I'm sure they'll get that done.
Well, Pollock is the exception there. It looks like he's just happy to go anywhere that's in Adelaide, and if you are homesickness, I'd say that's fair enough.
Absolutely agree with that. I guess that keeps everyone happy if they can get adequate compensation back. But you touched on Pollock there, so it seems to be, well, it obviously is a war between Adelaide and Port Adelaide. Now, Port Adelaide's indicated although earlier, a couple of weeks ago, Kenny Hinkley suggested they might give up their first round, which I thought was always unlikely, and they've come out and confirmed that in recent days.
I think it would need something else. If you're going to get their first round pick, you'd need to throw in maybe a second round as well. Or
there'd be some sort of crossing there, but it looks like their second round pick would be their offering, which I think is in the late 20s possibly, or something around there. And Adelaide, obviously, I think we might have touched on it last week. I can't remember, but they don't really have any trade value as far as the draft goes. They've got to give up players, and there's been no real word on a player that's keen to come to Brisbane. So that Pollock one might be a little way off getting done yet.
Yeah, in fact, all of these 5, I reckon, may well drag into the last week. So
wake us up in a couple of weeks.
You're not wrong on that. Now, as we record this, there's no news on the board situation. They were meeting today, Tuesday, which is when we're recording this. Haven't heard anything just yet, but I imagine when this goes out, there will have been some kind of news.
Please sort something out. I mean, I'm almost at this day. I mentioned this before you come on air. I mean, I do care, and I cover the club, and it's my job, and I love it, and it's great. But gee, we've just about had a gutful of this, haven't we? You just want a resolution, and I guess a lot of the fans want their vote. That's what they hoped for with an EGM. That may have happened, as we touched on this as we're recording before any news came out. That may happen, but gee, it'd just be nice to get a resolution, wouldn't it? Because there's still so much up in the air. That'd be a nice thing just to tick off. Yeah,
it would be amazing if we could just get this sold, get the trade period out of the way, and move forward as a club. I think that's really what the fans want, probably what the players want, and probably what the club wants. So,
exactly. I think the players on holidays would just be hoping to come back in the first week of November when they start training again, and hope all this stuff's resolved. They know who their board is, they know who their playing list is, which they will obviously by then, and they can just start training and do what they do best.
Yeah, definitely. Also, the final bit of news to touch on, Jonathan Brown is going around again in 2014, which is something we had a slight debate about before the show. Now, obviously, I'm as big a fan of Brownie as anyone, and I think he's a legend of the club, and I've got no issues with him sticking around. I am a little bit cautious, though, about how it might affect our forward structure in terms of planning for the future. Now, the reason I say that is because you look at 2 games last year Brownie didn't play, the game against Freo in Freo and the game against Geelong in round 23. Those 2 games, Jordan Lyle played as the main key target up forward and looked genuinely really good up there. But when Brownie's in, no one else seems to get a look in much.
Yeah, you make a good point. And I do know what you're saying. I am going to sit on the other side of the fence where I think it's a good move that he's stayed on. I still think the players are a little bit away. It's not so much what he can offer on the field, which I'm sure he still offers a lot. He'll probably still take the best defender, and he might command the ball a little bit too much, as you're sort of alluding to there. That's definitely a good point, but it's just what he offers off the field. I still think Brisbane is, no disrespect to other players here, I still think they're lacking a bit of leadership. I mean, Jed Adcock's done a good job as a co-captain this year, and obviously Rich and Rockcliffe are the vice-captains. Still think they're trying to make their way as leaders in the club, and there just doesn't seem that presence. And I think at the moment, with the club the way it is, there's a little bit of instability, young players wanting to leave, new coach, etc., etc. I think it's great that Brownie's there. You've got a firm voice that everyone knows and respects. And as from a playing point of view, what you say is right, that Jordan Lyle did his best work when Brownie wasn't there. That's an indictment on the players, probably his teammates looking for him, and maybe even Jordan himself. There's room for both of those guys, and I guess that's something they've got to figure out. Maybe Jordan's got enough confidence now, or whoever fills in that second key forward, that they can command the ball. Because you're right, when Brownie was there, the other guys didn't really. The other key forwards didn't step up, did they? I
suppose it really, when you think about it, should be down to them to step up, not Brownie to stand down.
That's right, and I think that's what everyone's sort of hoping for. And it's a little bit of an indictment on the club and the players that in the last 3 years since Favola left, when Brisbane's been looking for another target, they haven't been able to find a consistent one. So I think a good case this year was Hawthorn. They almost were planning for life beyond Buddy Franklin this year. They moved him further up the ground, and we saw their forward line function really well with not much contribution from Buddy. So Brisbane's kind of got to find a way to do the same with Brownie there, sort of look, use him while he's there, but also look a little bit beyond him for the next year or two when he's not.
And I hope Jack Redden's happy to have him live with him throughout the week for another year.
That's right. A nice little night at Reddo's each week.
We'll be chatting to the Lions' newest recruit, Jonathan Freeman, right after this on the Fancast.
The best way to keep track of everything Lions is to head to lions.com.au. It's the first place to find the latest Lions news and videos, get the lowdown on upcoming games, results and player stats. There's also great ways to interact with live chats, downloads and Player of the Year voting updates. And with a social media hub, you can connect with all the Lions' social media activity. lions.com.au. Everything Lions, all in one place.
Joining us on the Fancast today is the Lions' newest recruit. It was secured on Monday. It's Jonathan Freeman. Jonathan, welcome to the show. How are you feeling?
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm pretty stoked at the moment. It's pretty surreal and still sort of pinching myself.
Jono, there's probably a lot of people out there that don't know a lot about you. Can you just give us a little bit of your background and how you've made your way to the Lions?
Obviously, from the Sunshine Coast, and made my way into the Hyundai Lions Academy after playing a few reserves games for the Lions, and sort of went through that program and had a successful year this year with the state program, and found myself on the list at the Lions. So pretty happy about that.
You're a key forward, which is one of the most important positions in the game. Obviously, there's a few different styles of key forwards running around in the competition. Is there a certain play you model your game off?
It's a good one. Probably a pretty athletic, I'd say, for my size. So something like Jared Waite for Carlton or Josh Kennedy for the Eagles. Probably in that sort of mould where I cover the ground quite well and still like to, jump to the ball and take big marks.
Be pretty handy if you could turn out like one of those guys, Jono.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad.
Mate, can you tell us about the national champs this year? Obviously, you had a couple of good performances there. What did that do for your confidence, and how did you feel coming out of those national championships?
Yeah, so we had the two Div 1 games first up, so I was pretty keen to put in a good performance because I knew that was, the big stage, and I had to perform if I wanted to, make my name up in lights a bit. So had the first game was at Yeronga for Queensland against Vic Metro, and I thought I had a pretty solid game. Kicked I think 3 goals and took a few good marks, so I showed a bit, but probably my best game for the championships was against South Australia, and it was sort of the standout game for me, and just took a few vital marks and showed what I can do in the air.
Now, obviously, you are a year older than most draftees. You missed out last year. Can you let us know how crushing that was to miss out and how it helped you rebound this year to win a spot on the Lions list?
Yeah, well, last year was obviously pretty tough, and I had a few setbacks in terms of form and injury, and probably also like work ethic on the training track and putting the hard yards in. So yeah, opened my eyes to what it takes to get to that elite level, and I sort of took it in my stride and did the best I could this year, and yeah, just gave it 100% at everything I did. So far it's turned out well.
Sorry, mate. Obviously, when you're a key forward, there's a lot of things you've got to work on, especially at your age. What did you work on this year, and what sort of is your main focus for the next sort of 12 months? Yeah,
this year's big focus was my aggression in the contest, because you got to be a bit of a monster when you play in that key position, and got to really stamp your authority on the game, and that was something I struggled with. I worked closely with Tim Notting, ex-player for the Lions, and that's probably the main part of my game that I had to work on this year.
Now, obviously, the Lions have just got a new coach recently in Justin Leppich, who you wouldn't have had much to do with, obviously, throughout your time at the academy. Have you had much of a chat with Lepper so far, and what do you make of him?
Yeah, I sat down and met him in my interview with the Lions at Draft Combine, and then also had a chat when found out I was getting nominated. So I was really honoured to meet him, and I was really impressed by the way he presents himself, and definitely knows what he's talking about. So I'm keen to learn all I can from him. And the big news at the club early this week, Jono, was that Jonathan Brown was signing on for another year. I guess for a guy like yourself, that must be enormous to know that you're going to have him sort of to learn from in the next year or so. Yeah, definitely. I think it would fast track my development as a key forward, and I'll be able to learn the tricks of the trade from him. And obviously a childhood hero growing up, and same name, so same position. It's sort of pretty unreal that I'll get to learn from him. Now, on the bidding process on Monday, Adelaide actually did bid their third-round selection for you. Was that a surprise? Was that nice to see if another club show some interest? Yeah, I had an interview with them at the Combine, and they sounded pretty keen on the idea of bidding on me, so it wasn't a total surprise, but I guess it was a surprise that they bidded their first pick in the draft on me, so yeah, I guess that was pretty awesome. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on at the club at the moment about some players wanting to return home and whatnot. Can you tell us how great it is to be able to stay at a club in your home state and play at a club that you grew up barracking for? Oh yeah, it's pretty unreal. Like, just to be about an hour away from family and friends, and get to stay at the club you've been barracking for since I was young. Like, I remember going to grand final parades and trying to grab every signature I could, and yeah, it's a massive privilege, and also to come through the Hyundai Lions Academy and give them a bit of a reward for their time and effort they've put into me. I put out on Twitter we were getting you on the show and asked for any questions. Just 2 from there. Lions Die wants to know if you've fully recovered from your injury worries this year. Yeah, so I'm on track to being ready to go for day 1 of pre-season, and fingers crossed I'll be going over to Arizona with all the lists. So I've been tracking really well. The last few weeks have been, big improvements, and I'm starting to get back to full fitness. So yeah, I'll put that behind me and look towards the future now. And Jorgenot wants to know what your thoughts on the academy system was itself, what works and what doesn't work, and what you really got out of it as a whole. Yeah, it's obviously a great pathway for young footballers in Queensland to pursue their dream of making, an AFL list. And there's great coaches and guys involved with the academy, and yeah, it's just a great opportunity to draw from their knowledge that they have of the game, and yeah, just grab heaps of confidence out of that. And they really want you to believe in your ability and give it your best crack. So, and no holding back. So yeah, it's a great pathway.
Jono, for those people out there that don't know much about the academy, can you give us a couple of names of some other guys in your crop this year that you think may get either drafted or picked up via the rookie program?
Probably the three main sort of contenders would probably be Archie Smith. He's a basketballer turned AFL player. He's really grown this year into a AFL player, and it'd be good to see his his courage to cross from the sport he's grown up playing all his life and pursue an AFL career. So I think, he's got the potential to find himself on a list. Also, my fellow Noosa mate, Kane Tickner, it'd be good to see him get on one too, hopefully at the Lions, and probably also Isaac Conway. He's had a successful year with the Lions reserves, and also Ashley, so it'd be good to see him rewarded as well.
Well done on being the first ever Lions Academy graduate onto the Lions senior list. It's a massive achievement, and we're absolutely stoked to have you on board, and all the best for your first pre-season.
Yeah, thank you. It's a massive honour, and very, very privileged at the moment. So I can't wait to crack in and give my best for the club.